Thank you so much to SBA for the opportunity to share a little bit about the research that we are conducting. And it's worth noting that this research project that I am going to tell you about today is a direct result out of the participation from the various SBA chapters and other members of the community. And this is the research that you actually asked for, and so we are conducting it. So let's go to the first slide and let me show you what we did. So my research lab is actually focused on the neurobiology of cognition, as well as a little bit related to metabolism. And so I got involved with the SBA specifically because I am an adult with spina bifida. So obviously, a lot of these concerns is deep to my heart. And so my research lab, although we work on metabolism and we work on neurobiology, I really asked two of my students, whom you see here, Erin Klein and Alexa Lendinsky, and I asked them, please help us with this project that we really needed to hear from the community. And so what we decided to do is, as Dr. Polfa said in the beginning of our session today, there's just not a lot of spina bifida specific research. So taking advantage of the World Congress, where so many health providers that are specific and interested in spina bifida were going to gather, we wanted to survey these health providers and say, what do you even know about weight management and how to offer resources and help to them? And so you can see from our respondents, about half of them were physicians and the other half were all sorts of other healthcare providers. What was interesting and what you don't really see in this slide currently is that about only half, about 45% of our respondents actually participated in a weight management training session. And so we found that interesting, one. And two, more than half, about 57% of our participants also classified themselves as overweight and obese, which we found interesting and maybe potentially affected how they interact with their patients who would be thinking about these issues. And so if we go to the next slide, you could also see where we got our participation. And what was really nice about this survey is that we really was able to capture from like across the country various providers, which we were really thrilled and excited about. So in the next slide, you would see a little bit of preliminary results. I asked you to take it with a grain of salt, but I wanted to share this with you just so that you can see what we're dealing with here. And so I want to highlight the top three lines where they say, does the healthcare provider feel like they have proper training to provide exercise programs for people with spina bifida? And you'd see that the majority disagree with that. Along with that, they feel they have time in their meetings with their patients related to offering guidance. They also disagreed with that statement and whether they have the proper training. And so, as you can see, it's difficult for our healthcare providers to hit everything, but clearly this was a concern for the community that, it is the community that said we care about weight management. But you'll notice that maybe at least the providers that we sampled, they weren't really sure, or a majority of them stated that they wanted more information. And so if we go to the next slide, one of the interesting things is when we then ask the question of how confident are you in providing care, you'll notice that the confidence is actually quite high to provide care for patients that are younger than 18, as opposed to once we get to the adult ages and plus, so essentially after the ages of what we would call transition, there's the confidence decreases. And I think that's part of spina bifida being a childhood disorder, but obviously we don't graduate out of not having spina bifida. So it is something that we need to tackle. So I do not share these preliminary results to being like, oh, this is, a terrible state of the situation. That is not the point. What I want to share with you is often one of the other big metrics that we got back from the survey is most of the providers talk about obesity and weight management on an as needed basis. And what I wanted to convey, especially as a fellow spina bifida patient, is that, I joke when I was in college, I could eat anything and I would just be able to deal with it. I could eat Tupperware and I'd be fine, And when I was younger, I did a whole lot of activity. I was part of a wheelchair basketball team, et cetera, et cetera. And as I became a scientist, I spent much more time in front of a computer. And so because of all of these things that we talked about related to nutrition and physical activity and these concerns, ultimately, the longer lasting question or the primary question for my life has been, what is going to help me maintain the highest level of function for the longest period of time? And that's essentially what we're trying to get here. And I know that many providers, healthcare providers, that is also their goal, but they might not necessarily talk about weight management until it's on an as needed basis. And so we need to know more about what's happening within the community. And this is where I'm going to do a shameless plug for our very next experiment that is coming up. We are working on starting to distribute a survey related to attitudes related to weight management and obesity. And this is going to go out to adults with spina bifida so that, for example, we asked a lot of questions about the providers as to what they think it limits the ability for a spina bifida patient to do the things necessary to manage their weight. But we want to know, does that match with the community's view of what actually prevents them or helps them related to weight management? So we are going to ask for a lot of participation from the community, and we hope that you will join us in that endeavor. So again, I wanted to thank SBA for allowing me to share some of these results, and I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Polfus.